Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. Welcome to Bud Mouse. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting history. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story.
Okay, part 2 of this video is Harding County Fair. I don't know what to call it. Building? Yeah, let's go with building. Harding County is one of the biggest counties in South Dakota. We thought their fair and would be pretty big. Kind of like when we went to the steam engine thing. That was huge. We were wrong. It was teeny, it was tiny, but it was cute and fun. Now you get to see it. Enjoy. Alright. Historical walk, which we missed a little bit of because we're geniuses. And our cup, which is cute.
Come on over the first step.
We're working on it. Apologize for being late.
We took the Donner Pass and got a little confused.
So when that happened, this here American Hotel was shut down at the time, so I just called in there, found me a corner, and I cried and I drank, because that's what I do when I get like that. Townspeople knew I was in there, so they brought me wood for my fire. The boys at the local saloons brought me liquor. Sometimes I was drinking like 2-3 gallons of beer a day. I don't want to be like this, but I just can't seem to help myself. What I'd really like would be to have a little family of my own to take care of, but I don't think that's ever going to happen now. Well, you'll probably want to hear about Calamity Jane. Well, I spent quite a bit of time up in Deadwood, and I was up there when them boys was writing them dime novels about Calamity Jane and Deadwood Dick. So I was reading them books. Well, I really wasn't reading them because I can't read or write. But folks was telling me about them, and I thought, you know, that Calamity Jane sounds a lot like me. So I started adding to them stories about being an Indian fighter and an Indian guide and sharpshooter. I am a good shot with a handgun and a rifle, but the rest of that stuff, it ain't true. We did have a pretty lively imagination. And I wrote my autobiography. Well, again, I didn't write it because I can't read or write, but I talked it to some folks and they wrote it down. A lot of stuff in there ain't true either. I always wanted to be somebody important, so I just made a lot of that stuff up. But I am a damn good freighter and I'm a damn good nurse. That much is true. Then there was Wild Bill Hickok. Well, that's how I first got to Deadwood. Him and Bill and some of his friends was going up there in 1876. It's going to be a rich and gold rush, so I tagged along. I was pretty sweet on that Bill, but he never felt the same about me. But I spent quite a bit of time up in Deadwood. I was up there about 3 months solid during that bad smallpox epidemic that went through up there. I helped a lot of people through that bad time, because that's what I'm good at and that's what I like to do. And I've spent my fair share of time in the Hooskow up in Deadwood, because if I ain't freighting or nursing, I'm drinking and raising hell, so I know what the inside of those places look like. But I do wish I could have a husband, a couple little kids to take care of, but I doubt that that's going to happen now. I do have a daughter, though. Oh, she's smart. Lordy, she's purty. She lives down in Sturgis at that convent with them nuns down there. They're awful good to her. She's happy there. I sure miss her. I'd like to be raising her up myself, but I know the way I am that she's better off down there. And I had me a baby boy, but he didn't live very long. And I've had me a couple husbands. well, I called them my husbands. Really, they weren't. One was Mr. Steers. He was awful good to me and my daughter when she was little. But then it got so all we was doing was drinking and fighting, so that ended too. But I sure do wish I could have a little family of my own to take care of, but don't think that's ever going to happen now. Well, it's about time for you folks to be moseying on, so I'll be finishing up my story here. Martha Jane Canary died in 1903 at the age of 47 somewhere near Deadwood. By that time, Deadwood realized what a tourist attraction they had with Calamity Jane, and so they started adding to her stories, especially the ones about her and Wild Bill Hickok. Legend is that on her deathbed, she asked to be laid to rest next to Wild Bill, and so they are buried side by side in Mount Moriah Cemetery in Deadwood. She spent the last several months of her life in hospitals in Montana and Wyoming. Speculation is she died from syphilis, and of course the many years of hard drinking certainly would have taken their toll. All she ever wanted was to be someone's wife, someone's mother, be an upstanding member of the community, but it was not to be. There are many fond memories of Calamity Jane, some sad ones and even some vile ones. There have been many stories written about her from different points of view. We've done our best to tell her story as best as we know how tonight. However, our story might not be true either. Thank you.
So, can I ask, wasn't Calamity, didn't she join Bill Hickok's show? And wasn't she the one that could ride the horse and shoot the quarter in the air?
That was Annie Oakley.
Annie Oakley, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if she ever did.
Never in the shows.
She was never in a show. Okay.
She was kind of a sad soul, but then Rocky knows more about her.
Yeah.
he'll tell you about her other side. Enjoy the rest of the tour, you guys.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Have a good night, Martha.
You too.
So Sundance saw both sides of Martha Jane. We always knew her as Martha Jane. We didn't know her as Calamity Jane until the late 1800s and early 1900s, when the Deadwood papers would put little articles in it, and they would call her Calamity Jane. Through our newspapers, we called it the AP now, but we'd get news from Deadwood and we put it in our newspapers. And at the end of the articles, every time, it would always say, "Remember our friend Martha Jane, known as Calamity." So it's kind of cool that we saw the bad side and the good side. There's stories of her in town here with a pretty dress, bonnet, lace-up boots, walking across the street with a load of presents for her friends. And she asked little Tommy Hooper, one of the little boys here in town, to tie her shoe for her, just in a nice, gentle, quiet voice. Then there's times where she would come in with her freight wagons and she was drunk and just belligerent. She would take her horses down to the creek and she'd be beating them and whipping them and falling underneath them and wondering, everybody's kind of wondering if she was going to live. To the point where the mothers would take their children into the closest building just to get them out of her way. So yeah, it was a sad story for Martha Jane. But it's kind of cool that the Black Hills has no boundaries. We were part of the Deadwood crowd. Everybody came here trying to get better because the Deadwood was rough. It was a rough, nasty, really a hard place to live. And the people there looking for the gold would find out that there was another 3,000 people out there looking for gold, and they saw this little beautiful area through here and said, why can't we just come out here and ranch and make cattle for these poor people up in Deadwood to eat, and sell them the beef and make money. So that's where we really started. So as we go up and down, most of the stories that I'll tell you, I got out of the newspaper accounts, our local newspapers. So it's pretty cool that the history was written down. So we're going to go up the corner here. Sundance Mountain was named after the Native American ritual. In the 1800s, there were already miners back here in the Bear Lodge Mountains, and they would sit and watch the Native Americans at the base of their Sundance. And so that mountain was coined the Sundance Mountain. And then when Albert got his town, we named the Sundance after the mountain, and then when the kid was here, they named the kid after our town. So, another great story, not a great story, but another part of our history is the Chinese laundries. There were Chinese laundries, in the Chinese community in Deadwood, and there were 3 families that moved to Sundance, wanting to get out of that, trying to better their lives. And One was in the Sundance Hotel, which will be up down the corner here. One was down on the creek, which was like a personal laundry for the folks in that community. And then Mr. Ho was back here. Mr. Ho was right behind the American Hotel, so he did a lot of laundry there. And then plus for the saloons and whoever was on the street at the time. And everybody liked him. He had a good business. But there was a group of men in town that did not think the Chinese should be here. The two couples were only here for about 2 years, and they chased them out, and they went back to Deadwood. Mr. Ho stuck it out for 6 years. We don't know how. They would beat him, they would tar and feather him, throw him out in the street, they would pour alcohol on him, knock him out, get the sheriff and say, look, he's passed out again, we got to do something about him. There was a time that Mr. Ho found a 2x4 after they burnt his shack down 3 times and took after these guys. And the sheriff walked around the corner and he saw them. The guys were like, see, you got to take care of him. So they contacted Denver at the insane asylum down there, and they came up and took him, and we never saw Mr. Ho again. So,
This used to be the hotel?
yeah, right behind the hotel in the alley was his shack that he did his laundry in.
So was there a railroad that passed through here? Because I know the Chinese built
Nope.
a lot of the railroad.
Nope.
No railroad.
No railroad through here. Yeah, it ended in Belfouche, and then it ended in Gillette. So, for many years they put the propaganda out there stating that, buy property near Sundance because the railroad's coming through. Never have. Never has. And it's okay. I think that's one of the reasons we didn't grow. We didn't have the railroad. So, but we love it like here. It's nice. It's nice. Another big thing that Sundance had going for it, we had 3 newspapers here in town. We had the Cook County Monitor, the Sundance Times, which was called the Times at that time, and the Sundance Gazette. And it was a very
500 people.
yeah, yep, crazy. And a lot of them were based on politics. They had the Democratic paper, they had the Republican paper, and then they had a little brown paper. So we're going to come up to the Sundance Times. It is in the same exact spot that Cook County Monitor was. They moved in, and the Cook County Monitor went under around 1920, and they moved in its spot. So the Sundance Times was established in 1884. It is still running our newspaper today. It's the only one that has survived. And through the Homestead Act in the early 1900s to 19 teens, the smaller communities had an opportunity to have their own newspapers. Cook County is so large that it was hard for people up near the Montana line to come down to prove up on their property. They had to come to a newspaper and put their coordinates down, have witnesses, and the newspapers could do all that. So like Colony, which is up by Belfouche, had the Colony Coyote. Beulah, which is 18 miles here by Spearfish, it had the Beulah Globe. Lightning Flats, which is north of Gillette, had the Lightning Flats Flash. So it was kind of cool, and a lot of them stopped after the Homestead Act quit. They didn't need them anymore.
You say, explain that. I know the Homestead Act, when they would come to here to register their property.
Yep.
Does it need to be
They had to have
They
that
had to
article
print
in the
it,
newspaper
yeah.
stating that their coordinates and the witnesses. I mean, they'd have to still do it at the courthouse, but they had to get it in the paper first.
Oh, okay.
In order for nobody to take their property, first come, first serve. So if you get that yours in the paper first, that is your property, and nobody can take it away. So they hit up the newspaper first, and then make it
The
downtown.
courthouse had the property.
Yeah.
You could say I'm over this way or this way.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know what longitude and latitude was. Would they?
Oh yeah. Oh, they had chains. They had, and it's amazing how spot on they are. We have a wooden oak stake on our property for corner property. It's been there since 1884. And every time a surveyor comes out and checks our property lines, he's like, "This is just amazing." And it sits up on top of a bluff, in the middle of nowhere, and it is spot on. Don't know how they did it, but it's amazing. But they had their chains, they had their steps, because it was always like 65 north, 30 west, and everything was mapped out. Everything was it's amazing.
Down to the minutes and seconds, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
and how precise that they were back there without GPS, without, yeah, it is
Just a compass.
just a compass and a rod and a chain. Yeah, it is amazing. Like I said, that little wooden stake that's still on my mountain, on my bluff.
Well, now, would they have a surveyor do that, or they would
A surveyor would go out.
go out
Yeah,
and do it?
yep. Yeah, they would have somebody from the courthouse go out.
George Washington's first job, right?
Yeah, that's surveying. Yeah, and this is a huge country. You know, this county is amazing, and you know, a lot of them started with 160 acres to 320 acres, depending on what they wanted. Husband, wife mostly, and then from there they could gather more as they went on, as long as somebody else didn't come in and take it. There's some great stories. I got some in the museum about two brother-in-laws that were living one to one another, and one brother-in-law kept going and tearing his fence out. He's saying, this is my property, and the brother-in-law was going, no, it's not. This is my property. Well, they ended up, one guy killed the other guy.
Oh no!
Oh, no.
His property, and they're brother-in-laws. So it got dirty. It got dirty, and even in the late 30s, where people would still find bodies out in the gullies, up in the no man's land up here. And it was people that took care of their neighbors. They wanted their property, they could go in and take care of them, and if they didn't prove it up, if they didn't put a fence in it, if they didn't do a barn or a house within so many days, they could lose it. There's a lot of sad letters in our relinquished records that we have in the museum about the poor wives. The husband passes away, and it's no longer her property. And so she would write a letter, to the county stating, please, this is my home, this is my house, this is, and I am fixing the fences, I am, keeping the upkeep on the house. But since she was a woman, it didn't matter.
That was before women's rights.
Yep. So she either had to marry the neighbor, if he was single, so he would own her property then. There's a great little book called Letters of a Woman Homesteader, and she homesteaded down by Riverton, and she ended up fighting the system, which did not work for her, so she ended up marrying her neighbor, because she finally gave up and said, okay, you guys win. I am a woman and I can't do this. So it's a great little book, Letters of a Woman Homesteader. It'll really put things in perspective, how rough it was for these ladies out here. So the newspapers were a great asset to this community, to the county. And like I said, this one's been here since 1884. Another great little asset we had was the banking system. The banking system, we had a couple of very wealthy men that lived here. Abe Frank was one of them, and he would loan lots of money to the people that were moving in to build their saloons, to build their mercantiles, but they said that he really had a high interest rate. So if you were ever late on a payment, you really got screwed over big time. So they ended up opening up a couple banks. This is the second oldest bank in the state of Wyoming. It's the Sundance State Bank. It was established in 1895. And the building itself, there's a date on the front here, it says 1914. 1914 is the date that they built the stone bank. And the one on the west side says 1895, and that's the date that it was established. So in 1913, we had fires in town here, and we lost this whole row building. And the bank was one of them. So we rebuilt it with stone the second time. It's a very strong bank. During the Depression, it was strong enough to withhold the loans from the other two towns, Moorcroft and Hewitt. They both went almost bankrupt, and Sundance said, I'll incorporate you into our bank so the ranchers won't lose anything. And they did it. And once the Depression was over, the Sundance State Bank released them, and they could go back to their ranches, and it was really very strong. These were windows. They had 12-inch by 8-inch window panes. The original ones were just beautiful, beautiful little window panes. This whole thing were windows. Yeah, gorgeous windows. In the 50s, they updated and put the glass in. So it is up for sale right now. They're asking for $360,000 for it. It is a lot of work. You probably need to put $200,000 into it.
Ouch.
It has asbestos in the basement. It has the old boiler down there still, all wrapped in asbestos. All the tile upstairs is asbestos tile.
Oh.
I'm sure all this putty that they put in the 50s is asbestos based. Yeah, not good. So
Pretty building, though.
the woman that owns it, she just passed away on us 3 years ago. She was the great granddaughter of the man who built it. Back in
That's cool.
1895.
Dang.
So she had big plans of moving here again and refurbishing it and opening a store down here in her house above it. And she ended up getting cancer and passed away. So yeah, pretty sad. Look in the window here. You can see the old teller windows in there. The old safes with the big mountain paintings on them. And it won a lot of prizes because it's such a fine sandstone.
Really?
Yeah.
And where was it quarried at?
Right here in the Bear Lodge. We just found out. Our newspaper last week put an article in the paper. What's it called? It's 100 years ago. And the article. Huh? No, every week they do one like a peek at the past is what they call it. And last week was a little article stating that the quarry camp on Bruder, where the stone came from for the bank and the school, got vandalized. And I've had old guys take me up in the Bear Lodge over and over and over looking for a quarry for this stone, and we could never find it.
Yeah.
And then poof, in the newspaper, here it is. So we went Friday and went hiking up the canyon, and I think we found it. After
That's
all
cool.
these years of not knowing. Forest Service didn't know. None of my old guys here in town didn't know. And yeah.
I can see this is hand hewn. How did they take it out of the how did they cut it out?
By chisel. We did find some dynamite holes. Yeah, the bore holes. On one face we saw just one. It was like, okay, that's a good sign. But we don't know if it was for the road or if it was for the quarry.
Because we were in Sioux Falls, it was interesting, at the county fair there, and like I said, next to the Regular Quarry, the color, it was very near this, but it was all quartzite.
No, yeah, this is a sandstone. It's close to quartzite. A lot of the stuff that's left is quartzite out there. It's a little harder, but it's harder than a sandstone because it lasts. But it won a lot of awards at the Chicago World's Fair.
Good.
Yeah.
Keep them busy for 30 minutes. We'll be right back. This is the type of stuff we like to explore around up in Deadwood and
It is.
up in Nisland and
it
places
has been
like
used.
that. So
The bank moved out in about 1980 to the new position up here on Main Street. And so it has been a bakery. It has been a clinic. It has been storage. So
multi-unit.
multi-use, yeah.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
At least it hasn't been sitting dormant for 30 years.
No, it hasn't.
So.
And she was just starting to fix the windows. She was putting a new roof on it. She was just doing good.
If I won the lottery, that'd be my investment right there, babes.
I will not say it's slightly haunted.
No. So on this corner was one of our first little mercantiles. It was called the Red Front Store. In the Red Front Store, you can get your land title, you can get your ladders, you can get your paint, everything you needed for your mercantile you can get here. Should have turned my microphone on. I thought I was out of the micros.
You thought wrong.
Yeah. And it also had a little barber shop in the back.
Nice.
So it was like a Walmart of yesterday. So another good thing about our county, it was here, yeah. Yeah, they built this building. They tore the other ones down in like 68. They tore a lot of stuff down in 68.
What happened in 68? You guys get a big federal grant or something?
I don't know. That's when we lost our courthouse. We lost our city hall. They just started tearing things down and building.
Welcome to the age
So,
of
like-
modernization.
Yeah.
We need new buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
Our new government.
So education was another big draw for here. We had a great school system in the county. They really pushed educating the ranch kids and the farm kids. They knew it was important. Even though if they wanted to stay on the ranch and farm, they wanted to be educated.
I noticed that the school down there is pretty darn good size
Yeah.
for a town.
Yeah, and it covers a large
Big
area.
area.
Yeah, 20 miles every direction.
Yeah. They get bussed in.
Yep, get bussed in. Yep. So we're going to meet one of our first school.
Whoa.
Welcome to the hole.
Oh, not by me.
That would be me.
Okay. Hi.
Could be all right.
Yep.
Oh, The wind's gonna take your son.
I will hold your sign, Mark.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to see you all here today. We had a lot of thunder
Yes.
just a minute ago. I thought I was going to have to get out my Edison box. Or was that A.G. Bell did that one? I'm not sure. But I teach third grade here at the Sundance Grade School. Lovely school. We can't see it from here. It's at the foot of Sundance Mountain. So we've got the picture here. We've got 4 classrooms on each floor, 2 floors, so we can accommodate all 8 grades. Let me switch gears a little bit. It looks like some of you might be about ready for the high school admissions test. Some of you might have tried once or twice already. So I've got a practice test for you.
Uh-oh.
So
I know who's passing this one.
answers on one side, questions on the front. Got plenty, so you don't have to share.
We'll share.
Here, you know all the answers to this one.
Thank you.
He's the history buff, not me.
Don't worry about being accused of cheating. This isn't the Wyoming test. This is from New Jersey, but it's got very similar questions on it.
Only from 1885. Come on now.
My name is Morton Bowden. A little bit about me. I was born, raised, and educated in Superior, Nebraska. Came to Crook County in early 1900. My wife and I got a homestead up on the Tower Divide. And in the summer when school's not in session, I've got a job at the New Haven Curtis Clark Sawmill. in New Haven. I started my teaching career in the country schools. Taught 6 years there. Got my first job as a replacement for a gentleman named William Boyd.
Oh.
There's a lot of teachers in the system that got their first start replacing William Boyd. He apparently had a time holding on to his job. He is a very intelligent man. I don't want to take anything away from him on that. He's colorful. Usually he rides the 7 miles to school, but sometimes he'll run. In the summertime, he's always going around barefoot. You can get away with that in town, but I'm not sure Rattlesnake Country is a good place to be.
No.
Anyway, I've taught for 6 years in the country schools, usually log buildings. The south-facing wall would have all the windows so that we could have the sunlight shining on the blackboards on the north. We would typically run a school day from about 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. 2 recesses, about 15 minutes each, and an hour for lunch. Although the schedule did depend on the needs of the families that were sending their kids to the school. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know how many students I would have until the first day when everybody showed up. We would generally start the day with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'd sing the Star Spangled Banner, and I like to move from there to spelling. It's a good way to get your brain going. Good morning. After that, geography, social studies, poetry studies. We would have reading, of course, literature, and math. We would always have math. Friday afternoons is when we would do art.
Ah.
So good way to end the week.
Did you have a stable out if any of the kids rode their horses to school?
Stable or a lean-to, depends on the school.
Okay.
Each one's just a little different. We've got a stable here, don't we?
This one didn't. No.
Didn't have a stable there.
It was all within walking distance for the kids in town here. So.
Right. But if,
Where were the out kids?
the kids that came in from
They were either boarded here in town.
They're
We
boarded?
had boarding houses here.
A lot of times their mother might come rent a place so that she could send the kids off to school. Or the high school kids might get a place on their own to go to high school. I know of one family that didn't feel like they could justify a place for one kid, so they waited for her younger sister to get old enough and then sent them both into town. The school year also depended on the needs of the family. So usually it would run from about August, September until March. But if it was in a place where the snow got very deep in the wintertime, you might see that school run from April to October.
How many kids did you have per class?
So it would depend a lot from one year to the next and from school to school. Just depend on how many families were nearby that school and how many kids they had. So it could be as many as 30, but more likely like 10 or maybe even less than that. I remember one year I had like 5. And so obviously then I had to be prepared to teach all 8 grades, all subjects. The good side of that is that I did have the older students available to teach the younger kids and help them out with their lessons while I was working with somebody else. So it worked. It worked pretty well, actually.
What was your qualifications as the teacher?
I had 2 years of normal studies at a normal school like what they have in Spearfish. The normal school. We've got normal schools around here as well. If they were really short and with over 100 schools in the system, they might be willing to make an exception if you could just pass the test, finish 8th grade and pass the test. It would depend somewhat.
Yeah, Crook County had a rule that you could go one more year and you could teach anywhere in the county as a country school teacher.
What kind of salary did you get?
Well, when I was in the country schools, I was making $45 a month. And fortunately for me, I had the homestead, so I could just ride back and forth there. Some teachers had to stay with the families, and so then $5 of their 45 would go to the family that they stayed with. Now that I've moved into town, I'm making $55 a month.
Did you ever run into a problem during the Great Depression on the income there? Did they?
Not really. No.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
No,
good. That's good.
They kept it pretty straight.
That's good.
$55 a month wasn't bad money in the 20s.
Oh yeah.
So,
You said you taught 3rd grade,
I teach 3rd grade now.
but did one grade have 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 5th graders in the same class? Or
So-
did they go separate?
So in the country schools, we definitely had everybody in the same room.
And was this considered a country school?
No. This was our city school.
Yeah. So because we've got so many rooms available, we don't need to double up the grades.
Would you have had a teacher for the 3rd and a teacher for the 4th and 2nd?
And I'm happy to point out that we have facilities for both the boys and the girls separate.
Woo!
Big upgrade.
Modern.
Big upgrade from the county. Or from the, yep.
It's 3-holer each one of them, huh?
Yeah. 3-holer for the girl, 2-holer for the boys.
Oh, okay.
It is easier for me only having to keep track of one grade. Also, when I was up in the country schools, besides being the teacher, I was also the janitor and water hauler and the fire builder. If I banked it really well the night before, though, I might have a nice warm classroom the next morning when I came in. And at the end of the year, we would get together and have a big to-do. Sometimes we'll head out to Devil's Tower, have a big picnic with several different schools from around, and picnic and play games, we'll kick the can, little 24 skidoo, or we might even get a baseball game.
Is 24 skidoo a game?
Yeah, it's kind of like tag, only if you get tagged and you're at home, then you hold your hand out, and any of the other players that haven't been tagged yet can clap your hand. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. When you get to 24 and skidoo, then you can go out and back, run around again.
There's an airplane that's called 23 skidoo, right? And I always wonder where that name comes from.
I don't know if they're related at all.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think that's all the high points, unless you've got more questions. Anybody need help with that
test
test?
school right down there, right?
The new one is.
And that was, what were the grades in the high school?
It's junior high. Yeah, so 7th, 8th through 12th.
Okay,
7 through 12.
7 through 12, okay.
Yeah. And the one next to it's a grade school.
And of course, that was the city.
Yeah.
That came along after this.
Yeah. And after that, Stone Schoolhouse there.
When did this school get retired?
Around 1920.
Okay.
They were going to start doing updates on it, and they went up there on a windy day, and they got on the top floor, the wailing wind, and it swayed like a ship. So they said, we are not going to remodel, we're going to tear it down, and we're going to go for a new school. So they put the bonds out there, and the county approved them, the people voted on them, and they said yes, so for $1,000 they built that one.
And that works.
In 1923, 24 was the first graduating class.
Cool.
That's that building right there.
Yeah. Yeah, which is now the museum.
Well, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Party.
And who's all in the 8th grade with me forever? I could never pass that test.
No,
Never.
my goodness.
I definitely could not. Too much math.
But I know a lot of old guys that went to 8th grade, and my father was one of them. He knew geometry, he knew algebra. He would have been 95 this year. So yeah, it was amazing how those teachers taught back then. It was just quite.
It helps to not have 30 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks guys. Morgan, would you put that in my back of my truck? So it's not in the rain. In case it does start raining like crazy, you know.
What?
Just a little sprinkly out here.
Just a little
It's
sprinkly.
nice and sprinkly now. Another big draw that Sundance had was the opera houses.
Ooh,
The opera house that stood here belonged to Mrs. Nettlehorst. They had a pharmacy downstairs and a opera house upstairs, and it was one of the fanciest ones in the area. So she would put these full-page ads in the newspaper stating that she's bringing this act from San Francisco, this act out of Chicago, and people would flock to town on the weekends. We had 2 other smaller ones scattered around, and they were more like the vaudeville acts. They were the ones where you threw a popcorn at the actors. So the people that didn't make it into the Nettlehorst would feather out and go to the fun ones. You know? Didn't want to hear somebody do opera all night long. But it was a great asset to this community. So we're coming up to the City Hall. The City Hall was built with the same bricks that the courthouse was in 1890, and it was a 2-story building. It had the fire department below and the offices upstairs, and it had a cupola on top with a bell. And that bell signified either a fire, or when we had the boarding houses here in town, it was a 10 o'clock curfew. So there were boys that were across the street. There was a cafe, and it had 6 rooms above the cafe for a boarding house. And they thought it'd be funny if they took their 22s one night and pinged the bell after curfew. And they did it until 2 o'clock in the morning. It
Oh,
drove
wow.
the police crazy. They never did find out who it was. I found out 2
Watch
years
out behind
ago
you.
that it was Chipper Chatfield, who has a ranch 10 miles outside of town here. And he wasn't him. It was his daughter. She came on the sip and walk. She goes, "That was my dad." I was like, oh, that is so cool. And Eva's got to be, what is Eva now? 70, 75, 76.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool to finally find out who those boys were across the street that were pinging that bell.
That's fun.
So yeah, it is amazing how our community is still here after 5 generations. Some of them, it's pretty cool. Abe Frank had a little mercantile here, and it wasn't a little one; it was a large one, beautiful mercantile. And he was about like the Nettlehorst. He had the money that he could put full-page ads in and let the ladies know he's got the latest fashions from San Francisco. And he did very well here in town. This little building is the building that was back behind the red front store. So it was a barber shop back there, and in 1930, instead of tearing the building down, they pulled it up here and put it here, and it was a barber shop until 1981. So now it's a land and title company, but it is still standing. So it's one of our oldest buildings in town here. Huh? It's wood underneath the stucco. Yeah. They stuccoed it probably back in the Boy, I think it was right after Mr. Crago quit barbering, they stuccoed it. So in this little spot in the Bruce Bydell Gallery area was a little cafe that understood tourism back in the 1890s. They had a little sign that hung outside and it says tourist welcome. And they would do little box lunches that had a sandwich and a jar of water. And the tourists coming through that were going to the Bighorns or the ones that were coming from the west, coming to the Black Hills, knew they could stop here and get a cool little sandwich and cool water to drink on their way. There's a story of two newlyweds that were headed to Yellowstone Park, and they stopped here for their sandwiches and were headed out, and they got on the other side of Gillette and got between the skirmish between two outlaws.
Oh no!
One of the husbands got killed.
Oh no!
They continued on to Yellowstone Park and had a beautiful time.
Oh.
We do not know what happened to the husband. Either they buried him on the spot between Gillette and Buffalo. We don't know. They just, all it says is they had a great time at Yellowstone Park.
So much
Some of them did.
Yeah, crazy.
So much for morning.
Yeah, no morning at all in that one. So across the street was the Sundance Hotel. The Sundance Hotel, after the Little American Hotel was torn down, they opened this beautiful hotel here. It was 2 stories. It had carpeting throughout the building. Every room had its own little stove, which was the downfall of the building, because it burnt down twice.
Oh no.
But they had a beautiful restaurant and a beautiful little saloon in it. The back bar that's in the Longhorn, if you go to the Longhorn Saloon for supper one of these nights, look at the back bar. It came out of the Sundance Hotel here.
Huh.
So they did save it, redid it, and it's in the bar now. It was a great stop for the people coming in for the opera houses. They could take their buggy over to the livery stable and they could stay here the night, enjoy the nightlife of Sundance and everything. The restaurant, every Friday night through the summer, the restaurant would serve fresh clams and duck all orange for their special. Where they got fresh clams in the middle of Wyoming, we do not know. I would say it was a fresh can opened.
Small fib. Small fib. Small fib.
Yeah. There's no fresh clams up here.
No calamity gin. Sorry. I'm going to pay for that later.
Yeah, you will. So across the street was the Barton Livery Stable. The Barton Livery Stable was one of our first livery stables here in town. It was well established, well ran. And tonight we're going to meet George. Yes, he is here. Good evening, George. Well, good evening, folks. Gather around George and let him tell you his story. In the rain.
And what a beautiful day it is.
Yeah.
Hey, I like this.
Good.
I like this. You know, in August it's supposed to be. Some folks even call this cold. Not me. Nope, not after last winter and that dang blizzard that we had. I got to tell you, not just was the snow deep and the loss of cattle was bad, but day after day after day of that relentless cold, way below zero, and the wind blowing. It was awful. So I don't call this cold. No, that was so bad. I got to tell you, my wife May, she even chopped up the piano and throwed it in the wood stove, tried to keep it warm, but all she got was a few cords out of it. So anyway,
Grandpa joke?
I think this weather is just fine, if you ask me. Folks, my name is George Barton, and I run this here livery stable. My wife May and I have owned it for a few years now. And I just got back from the Bear Lodge Trail this afternoon. I had to go up and help an old boy with a broken wagon wheel. See, what happened was the metal band that goes around the wooden wheel, that thing had snapped up there. So I took along a roll of wire and some simple tools, and you know what, with a little imagination and a lot of cussing, we got that thing cobbled together where we could limp it on down to the livery stable, and it's out back right now, along with a couple other wagons that need repair. There's always something broke down around this place. But I'll tell you what, that's just an example. When you're a livery man, it's not just a matter of feeding horses, and watering them and stuff like that. There's all kinds of trades that you have to know. As an example with the broken wheel band, I've got my forge out back. You have to be a blacksmith as well to begin with. A lot of other skills are needed too. you need to be somewhat of a farrier. You're going to be trimming hooves. You're going to be putting on horseshoes, you know. You got to be somewhat of a carpenter because these wagons are made of wood. And of course, that, you know, all kinds of problem goes along with wood. But the most important part is the wheel. And in order to be a good repairman for a wheel, you have to be what's called a wheelwright. A wheelwright is one who is skilled in the manufacturing and the repair of wagon wheels. There's quite an art to that, and a wagon wheel is actually a very complex item, very interesting item. They say that the trade of the wheelwright goes back as far back as any other skill or trade. Some say even as far back as the Stone Age, when somebody figured out it was easier to roll a round stone than a square stone. We're not going to dwell on that period of time simply because it's kind of a reminder of my own age and mortality. And Miss May does a good enough job of that on her own. She don't need any help. But yeah, you can see there's a number of skills that are necessary. As an example, leather working. You've always got some saddle work to do. You've got reins and harnesses and bridles that are always needing mending. So I'd like to think that the liveryman in town is probably one of the most valuable people around because he has to be skilled in so many areas. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the livery here in Sundance. You know, everybody needs a livery. And we have a lot of folk that live out in the country, some of them quite a ways away. That makes the weather. And it's pretty hard for them to get into town, take care of all their business, and get out before dark. So usually what happens is they'll come in and they'll buy their supplies and their provisions and meet with the folks they need to and stuff, and then they'll come and they'll leave their horse with me and park the wagon around back. They can go downtown, have a good meal at the hotel, maybe a few drinks. When they get ready to leave in the morning, they come to see me. I've got their horses all fed and watered and freshened up and hitched up, ready to go, and they appreciate it. We get a lot of business also from the stages, particularly that spearfish and buffalo stage. That's quite an operation. And we'll have an occasional passerby on a saddle horse to do business with as well. But I've got to tell you, my favorite one is that little Miss Stafford. She's a lady doctor who hails from Denton. She comes here every so often. She got no place for her horse, so she leaves him with me. When she needs to go out in the country or when she gets ready to head back home, she'll see me for her horse. But I got to tell you, it was this last spring, middle of the night.
Throw your pitchfork, Abe. I'll take it out there.
It was the middle of the night. Old Amos down at the Black Buttes. He was answering the call of nature. He was walking up the path to the two-holer under the moonlight. And he didn't see that rattler snake.
Uh-oh.
And that snake got him, bit him right in the leg, so it did. It was fortunate that Doc Stafford was still around, because she went and tended to him for quite a while, and eventually she got the swelling to go down. It swelled up just as big and black as you imagine. It was terrible. But she saved him. She saved his leg, and a lot of folks said that she probably saved his life as well. But the dangest thing, you know, old Amos said that that rattler never gave him any warning at all. He come up when the snake was there and just bit him, never rattled. Never rattled. Amos says that snake's tail and that rattle was laying limp right there in the trail, and old Doc Stafford says, well, you know, I've heard of that too. She says that's what they call a reptile dysfunction. So she's a good doctor, I gotta tell you. Oh.
Oh, they're getting worse, Doc.
I'll just say that joke is poor. Poor.
Oh, I gotta tell you folks, you know, the livery here in Sundance has been a pretty good occupation for me and myself. We've gotten by all right, you know. Right now, coffee and butter is both about 18 cents a pound. And what's this world coming to? 18 cents a pound. My goodness. So we got to buy our dairy and our coffee, but we don't have room for a cow. But we do have eggs because we got chickens. Boy, do we ever have chickens. In fact, right now that's where That's where Miss May is. She's out back tending all the doggone chickens. See, there ain't nothing that old George Barton likes better than a good old fried chicken dinner. You take that big black cast iron skillet of ours and a big old dollop of lard right in the middle there. Melt, and bacon grease works just as well. You melt that down really good and hot. You know, throw that chicken in there, get her all good brown and crispy, and then you mix in your flour and your seasonings, make a good rich gravy out of that to pour on your taters. Like I said, there ain't nothing I like better than a good old fried chicken dinner, you know. But anyway, I'm a little bit concerned because Miss May's been spending too much time with the chickens, I think.
Uh-oh.
And I think it's starting to affect her. And you know, there's been a time or two that I've started to feel that maybe I've been coming down with a touch of that chicken fever myself.
Uh-oh.
Just exposure to her. You know, and I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to talk to old Doc Stafford about that next time she comes through. They say that you can always tell because the first indication of chicken fever is, and there it is. The first indication of that chicken fever, it's in the cough. That's a dead giveaway, folks. Anyway, yeah. So, you know, it does get pretty quiet around here in the winter time. And when it does, me and the boys will go out to the lake and we'll saw out some big cubes of ice, you know, and put them in the back of the wagon and haul them into Jim Bowers' ice house. He's got an ice house over here. It's got big thick walls and got about 3 foot of sawdust, and that sawdust will keep that ice frozen clear into the summer, so it will. No, tell you what, Sundance is a pretty good place to live, if you ask me. The sheriff, he don't put up with no gunplay, so it's generally pretty quiet around here. Till every once in a while you get some of the tourists coming through, you know what I mean? Before you know it, they're down at the saloon, hooking it up and stirring things up. But you know, when they do, chances are we're going to be right there in the middle of it with them having a good time. Well, speaking of a good time, I really hope that you've enjoyed your time in Sundance today.
We have. How much snow would Sundance get, and would the streets get plowed, or
Oh, yeah.
how would that happen?
Oh, at that time, no. They had 2 foot of mud. They had boards that laid across the streets so the ladies and people could walk across that way. But we've got photos of it, you know, up to the hub of the wagon wheel in mud. Just
Mud.
nasty.
Oh.
Mud. Yeah. Well, it wasn't just mud though. It was waste also.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. A lot of horses. Yeah. But yeah, we had a lot of snow and some flooding. I'm going to tell you a little thing about our spring floods.
How much snow does Sundance get now?
In the hills, we get about 6 foot. Down here, it ranges from 1 foot to 2 foot, but it never sticks around. It's a very low moisture content, so it either gets blown away with our winds, or we have a Chinook wind that comes through, like in February, and it'll melt all our snow away and leave bare ground. So yeah, it's pretty nice. George figured out that in the spring thaws, Sundance Creek would come out down the canyon here, and before they put it underground, it used to just roar right through here. Well, he figured out in the spring, instead of having to do a spring cleaning, he could open his front door and back door, and it would clean it for him.
There you go.
You
Might
know
lose
how
some things,
long
though.
I've been trying to forget that. Let me tell you, it works good, but you got to be careful because what he says is true. You know, that spring thaw and that water comes flowing down here like crazy. And I figured that out. I went and I mucked out all those stalls real quick and moved all of that waste, that straw, that manure and everything into a pile right there in the middle. Then I go out back and I open the back doors. I looked around, go out front and open the front doors, and then the water comes flooding through there, just flying through there, and took all that waste right out the back. Worked just slicker than, well, there's two here. Anyway, it worked out pretty good, but there's one thing that I did not take into consideration. And that was my sweet Miss May.
Uh-oh.
Just coming back from visiting Virginia over here. That beautiful long dress and those button-up boots. Shoes
Oh,
like that,
no.
you know? Oh, and the timing was real bad. It was bad. I don't need to tell you what happened. And down she went, and the worst part of it all was I couldn't stop laughing.
No.
Next thing I know, Next thing I know, she's up and coming at me with one of them button hooks, and her plan was not to use it for its intended purpose.
Uh-oh.
But I can tell you this, after I hightailed it out, I got to enjoy the warm, safe, cozy lodging of George Bowers' livery stable. I didn't do that either. Thank you for that memory.
You betcha.
No, she was madder than a wet hen. Sorry about the chicken.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
You bet. Thank you, George. George is actually pictured on the right side. He's the one on the right hand with the two horses. They were in business here until the early 1900s. And then they sold it off to another family who turned it into an implement store. When George had it, he sold Studebaker buggies. And then when the Tracy family got it and they started doing mechanicals, they got the Studebaker cars. So it's kind of cool that it just went through, and today they have the Napa store here in town.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
Still
fifth
here.
generation here in the county.
Yeah, we do the Napa.
Napa store, yeah. I've got the cash register that came out of this livery stable. When the younger Tracy got old enough to work in the Napa store, he was like, "Dad, we need a real cash register," because they were still using that oak one with the 3-finger code, and it's like, so I have it in the museum now, which is pretty cool. Okay, Sheriff.
Drinks over here.
Yeah, do it in the dry weather here.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
You gotta dry a little bit. Looks like it's gonna blow over.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's almost done.
Might be done by the time we get done. Okay, we got wine.
Good time.
We got some wine
absolutely.
drinkers. Wine drinkers.
Yes.
Let's start with the wine.
Oh, George, you're hilarious.
I hope he's not around tonight.
Yeah.
We're gonna have some trouble in town.
Yeah.
That's right. He's not welcome here in Sundance. But let me tell you about how I became the sheriff here, the first sheriff in Crook County. It was a couple of years before we were incorporated, and we needed a sheriff. And I was at the church social, and there was a big deal going on. The whole community gets together, and they were auctioning off pies, a little fundraiser for the church. Well, I was bidding on that pie, and I wound up winning the pie. Well, then the town drunk came out of the back of the crowd saying that he won the pie. It was his pie. He pulled out his guns and he started shooting. So I ducked behind the wood pile real quick, shot a couple shots off in his direction, and he took off. Well, I guess then the town folks thought I was pretty good with a gun, and they elected me the first sheriff.
One way to get a position.
Over a pie.
So
You
remember,
were a one-term sheriff, though, you said.
yeah, one term, yeah. The Sundance kid, he didn't work out. As a matter of fact, if you get into the courthouse, there's a picture of everybody that was ever sheriff here in Crook County, except for me. I didn't bother putting a picture of me up there, I guess.
I'm looking, James. I'm looking. There's got to be a picture of you out there somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right now, there is none.
We could have some fun with that.
Yeah. We could. Yeah.
All right, well, if you see that kid tonight, you let him know he's not welcome here.
Oh, we will.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, have a good day. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Finished our walk. Rain's almost done now. On the corner here was Mr. Rounds, had a mercantile. He was one of the first mercantile owners here in town, and he always had partners throughout his stay here in Sundance. And his first partner was Seth Bullock. Seth Bullock came to town and noticed all the freight that was coming through, and he thought, God, what a great opportunity for me to have another mercantile. He had one in Deadwood, he had one in Spearfish, and he thought, what a great place to have one in Sundance. So he went and talked to Mr. Rounds here, and they became partners for 6 years here in town. And while he was here, he figured out that he couldn't communicate with Deadwood or Spearfish, and it was driving him crazy. So every week he'd put an article in the paper stating that if the citizens of Sundance want to be a progressive in the retail country, you need to get a telegraph. And he was one of the reasons that Sundance got the telegraph. He just pushed it and pushed it. For weeks he put in articles in the paper stating that it needed to be done. So without Seth Bullock, we'd still be sending smoke signals to Deadwood, asking for permission. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So we're going to continue on down. But like I said, Sundance and the Black Hills are one community at a time. Everybody knew everybody. Next to the Mercantile was Charlie Sackett's saloon. Charlie Sackett had 3 saloons in his lifetime in Sundance. He would build them, get them established, sell them, and move on and build another one, get that one established, work it for 5, 6 years, up to 10 years, and sell it. Well, this one, Jim Bauer's ice house was in the back. The ice house that he said they went and got the ice. They used to get the ice, which we call Medicine Lake, which is now called Seeley's Pond. But it has a very high sulfur content in it. It's a natural spring, and it smells like sulfur as you drive by it. It's really bad. But in the wintertime, Charlie needed to get people into his saloon, so he would claim that the sulfur ice would smooth out his whiskey.
Okay then.
Well, why not?
I don't know if it works. Every year it's like, I'm going to go out there and chip some ice, but it smells so bad, I can't imagine. But he would put a little thing in the paper stating that he's got the ice from Jim Bauer and come on and have a smooth whiskey on me. So it brought in business for him.
Everyone needs a gimmick, huh?
Yeah. You drink enough whiskey, you'll believe
About
anything.
2 months before Prohibition, Charlie Sackett sold his last saloon. Good timing, he had an inside voice somewhere. Before Prohibition ended, we have a receipt from the Masons that says that he sold 2 gallons of gasoline to the Masons party. But what he was doing, he still had liquor hidden in his gas station 2 blocks away. So he told everybody that he sold them 2 gallons of gas, but it was not gas, it was for the party. So he was still in the liquor business through Prohibition.
They make their liquor here or not?
There was a lot of stills. Oh my God, every coal mine, every old mine that was here in the Bear Lodge had a still. They were blowing them up left and right. The newspapers are hilarious. I do a program on the Prohibition in Kirk County, and it's just crazy how sometimes violent. This is the steakhouse. This is the Longhorn Steakhouse. Yeah, this is where the back bar is that came out of the Sundance Hotel. Is in there. This is also where Abe Frank moved his Mercantile. After the big fire took his away, he built it here, rebuilt it, and he ended up putting the first telephone system for town in his building.
Is that the bar?
And yeah, that's the bar. That's the back bar there. And he would hire this little lady that worked for him 6 days a week. She would work from 7 in the morning until 8 at night, and she got paid $14 a month. And she absolutely loved it. She did it until she passed away. And they said that she just loved the gossip. She loved to hear all the news, everybody's business, and she just never complained about just the $14 a month because she absolutely loved every minute of it. Crazy little lady.
It was the switchboard.
It was, yep, switchboard. And actually, it was before the switchboard. This is a one single phone. It's in the museum. And so everybody would call her to message, and then she could relay it back.
Okay.
So she had to, yeah, it wasn't one of these yet.
Okay.
It was a single phone.
It was the one ringy dingy.
Yeah. It was really bad. Prostitution also happened here in Sundance. For many years, people denied it, but I did find articles in the paper, and it was called The Ranch. One of the articles stated that shots were fired at the ranch, but all the girls are okay. And then I researched it, and it was based up on the hillside over here.
Okay.
So yeah, every western town had a cat house.
Yep.
The little lady who owned this little millinery shop here actually figured out that she could make money selling her hats to the cat houses. Her husband died when he was 50 years old of an infected tooth, and she had 3 children. And little Tommy Hooper, that tied Calamity's shoe, was one of her children.
Oh.
And after he died, she started making these big flamboyant hats and selling them to the cat houses. But none of the local ladies ever found out. She kept it secret for 130 years until I found out about it.
What was the issue of selling the hats to the?
It was, you had nothing to do with Cat House.
Oh.
Her husband was a lawyer. They were wealthy, well-to-do. You did nothing with the cat houses.
Okay.
So
The girls had to have clothes, right? They had to have the clothes made somewhere.
yeah, but it had to be a secret because she would lose all her business from her little ladies here in town. So every evening she'd load her buggy up with all these big hats and go to Deadwood and Gillette and sell them to cat houses. So I have their wedding photos in my museum. And when the family gave them to me, they said, we're going to tell you Matilda's secret, how she survived with 3 kids and never remarried. And this is how she did it. Yeah, pretty amazing. So women just did what they had to do.
Yep.
Very secretive, but they did it.
Watch the curb behind you.
Yep. So 3rd Street was also a very high commerce street. We had a millinery and another boot store. We had a mortuary and also a great little produce shop. And this produce shop would get produce from O'Neill Pass down here. There is a little microclimate somewhere on O'Neill Pass, south of town here, that can grow watermelons, cauliflower, broccoli, all these fruits and vegetables we can't do. And they had contact with it, and they could bring all these great produce in and to sell them. So it was a good start.
How was she able to keep that property homeowner? It wasn't like some homestead.
No, it was good. It was
She had,
all legal.
Even though her,
He was a lawyer. Yeah. So now we're going to meet one of Sundance's notorious outlaws. So ladies, watch your purses. Men, watch your wallets. He's a smooth talker. Hey, Harry. How's it going tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Howdy, folks.
Howdy, howdy.
I'm Harry Longabaugh. I see you decided to stop in this small town. I did the same thing back in 1887, although probably for not the same reason you did. However, I did stop here. I was born in Pennsylvania. My father's name was Josiah. My mother's name was Anne. I was the youngest of 5 children. When I was, well, actually, my father, he was kind of a no-count. So my mother picked up all the slack in the family, and we followed her from place to place where she found work. I left school at a young age, and when I was 14, I had saved up enough money working odd jobs with my brother that I had saved up enough money to board a train and head west to Colorado. In Colorado, I worked on my cousin George's homestead. It was near Cortez. And there, I developed a keen love for horses. We bred and raised horses there. We farmed. I also worked at a ranch called the LC Ranch for a man named Henry Goodman. Learned a lot there as well. In early 1886, I left Colorado when I was just barely 17. Went north to work at the Suffolk Ranch near Lusk, Wyoming. I was paid $35 a month to wrangle horses. I did not get along with the other hands at the outfit. We tussled quite a bit. One day the sheriff came and accused me of stealing $80 from an old man, and I couldn't prove otherwise, so I hightailed it out. I made my way into Montana, where I worked for an outfit called the N-Bar-N. The N-Bar-N was a huge spread. They boasted that they had over 65,000 head of cattle. They had a good string of horses too. The winter of 1886 and 1887 was especially tough. The N-Bar-N estimated that they lost roughly 27,000 head.
Ooh, wow.
So I was sent my walking papers along with some of the other hands. I made my way into the Black Hills for the winter, hoping to find work. I found very little, and in the spring I headed back, hoping I could take my job back at the N-Bar-N. I passed through a place just north of here called the 3V. I didn't stay long, and when I left, the old man had accused me of stealing a gray horse, a saddle, and a bridle. I made my way into Miles City, and it was there when I was trying to figure out my next move when the sheriff had arrested me for stealing that gray horse. He phoned Sheriff Ryan down here in Crook County, or I should say he telegraphed Sheriff Ryan.
Texted him.
Yeah, texted him. Sheriff Ryan.
Did you really steal the horse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I stole a couple in my time, yeah. Sheriff Ryan came and got me, and we took a little train ride east from Miles City. Sheriff Ryan had business in Minnesota. When we got into Minnesota, Sheriff Ryan went to relieve himself, and I had slipped my cuffs and ducked off the train and into the brush before anyone even knew I was gone. I was able to acquire a horse and a handgun, and I made my way back west. My biggest mistake was going straight back to Miles City, where I was quickly recognized and detained once again. This time Sheriff Ryan came and brought me straight back to the Crook County Jail. He meant business that time. I was sentenced to 18 months in jail. However, I was pardoned by the good governor of Wyoming.
Ooh.
I guess he felt sorry since I was just barely 19 years old. My friends...
Is that how you knew him? Did you know him?
The governor? Possibly. Allegedly. Rumors. Yeah. That was about the last time I set foot in this town. My friends would later on razz me for getting arrested and locked up here. Thus they nicknamed me the Sundance Kid, which was what I was known as by the outlaws and law men from there on out. Well, I best get going. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you.
for coming out.
Don't get caught by the sheriff now. He's walking around.
That's why I gotta hightail it out of here.
Just have to say no horsing around.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we do on our free time here a little bit.
Well, thank you. That was interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Harry is your Harry, right?
Yep.
Harry
Harry
Longbaugh. Yeah.
Harry Longbaugh.
Yeah, and his family still is in Colorado and Pennsylvania, and then Leroy Parker's are in Utah mostly, which is Butch Cassidy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the story goes that in 1900, him and Etta Place got married. The little calling card with the woman and Harry is actually their wedding card. 2 years ago, they found one in a trunk in Thermopolis, Wyoming.
Oh.
And on the back side, it says, can't remember this woman's name for the life of me. To the woman, this is my new wife, Etta Place. And so now they have proof that him and Etta were married in New York. And so from New York, they claim to have $300,000 on it. And between Butch, Sundance, and Etta. And they headed to Bolivia to buy this ranch. And they bought the ranch. We're doing well. They loved it. That's what they always wanted to be, was ranchers. And word got out that they were down there, from the Pinkertons to the Federales. And there was a big shootout in the village. And supposedly Butch and Sundance got killed. And they buried them in the village's cemetery. They dug the bodies up about 20 years ago and found out they were not white. They were Mexican descent. So we don't know what happened to them. 1910, Etta Place ends up on a ship in the San Francisco harbor from Bolivia, all alone, which never happens. Women were very rarely traveled alone.
Right.
And so they're thinking that Butch and Sundance were with her, and they came to the United States, back to the United States in 1910. There's a woman in Oregon who claims that her great-granddad, Henry Long, is a Sundance Kid. And there's the Parker family, who the sister says that he died on the ranch, and he's buried there, but she won't say, she would never say where.
In Bolivia?
Nope, in Utah.
In Utah. Oh,
Oh, that's cool. Sorry.
Where did you meet
Yep.
Bush?
Where did I meet Bush?
Yeah.
Somewhere along the trail between wrangling horses between Colorado.
Y'all just hit it off good, huh?
We crossed paths a couple times. Yeah. Yeah. We got into some mischief.
I mean, there's no record that Butch ever came to Sundance, though.
No.
That we know of.
On the daylight.
There's a lot of a lot of gray area, of the kid and Sheriff Ryan, and you know, Sheriff Ryan, I'm still trying to figure out who he was, what he was. He came to Deadwood in the gold rush. That's how he got here. And he ended up going back to Montana, and that's where he died. Was in Boulder, Montana. And I contacted the historical society up there, talked to the family of him, of the Ryans, and they're looking for photos of him for me right now. I'm hoping one day I'll have a photo of Sheriff Ryan.
He's the last holdout, right?
He is.
You got him all.
But you know, we question why he went to, or even if he did go to St. Paul. Why?
Why to miss something? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a long way from here.
And he never contacted our newspaper. He contacted the Billings Gazette, and then we got it from the Billings Gazette. So it's like, okay, did he even go there? Did he just say that he was going to go up and get Harry? Were they wrestling cattle together? Were they wrestling horses together? There's so many things. Why did the governor let him go on good behavior? He tried to escape twice.
That's good behavior.
The governor
He was
contacted
testing
us.
the jail system for it.
Yeah.
This didn't work. Let's let him out.
I don't know that.
Pointed all the flaws out.
Exactly. Hey, this is the key
I don't know.
that
He
you want.
had to know the cattle companies here. Yeah, so and the cattle companies ran the state. The governor didn't.
Oh yeah, just like today, right?
Yep, it's just like today.
Big business
The
does.
corporations run the country.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the story just is amazing. It is still unknown. And it's crazy. It all started here. There is a life-size statue of the kid in the park. Behind the brick wall. You can get pictures taken there, or you can get a picture with him right here. Watch your wallets and purses.
That's a lifestyle. This is a life.
This is the life. Yeah. And then the museum, we have the original courtroom furniture he was tried in from 1887. We have his indictment
cool.
papers and pictures of the jail, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that you set this up.
This is our 9th year.
Very nice.
Very cool.
And you do it all summer, right? Not
Yep.
just during
July and
week?
August.
Okay. Oh, July and August. Okay.
July and August, every Tuesday, Wednesday night, rain or shine.
You guys are committed.
Which, you know, it is beautiful.
At least it's not hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It is.
I'll take rain over heat any day.
Yeah,
This is perfect.
this is
Yeah.
perfect weather for us.
Yeah.
We
I
love
just
it.
kept waiting for lightning, but you know,
Yeah.
that's a personal issue. It's hot.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, the pre-rainbow behind you the whole time.
The sun hitting that mountain out there.
Yeah, it looks great.
Oh,
That's
Sundance
beautiful.
Mountain changes. It just every sunset's different. It's a beautiful area.
Sure is.
If you get a chance and go up to Warren Peak back behind us here, there's a road. You go a mile and a quarter like you're going to Devil's Tower on Highway 14, and you'll see a road that says Warren Peak and Cook Lake Recreation Area, River Campground. 6 miles up a paved road, and then the last 200 yards is gravel up to the Lookout Tower. But you can see forever up there. You can see Devil's Tower. You can see the Bighorn Mountains with the snow on them. You can see Montana. You can see South Dakota. It's just gorgeous up there.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's fun.
it's a good little drive. It's a fun drive.
Oh, well, very
Yeah.
good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's on your way to Cook Lake.
Right.
Yep.
Fish.
Yep. So you get up to the tower, and then you just go back down and go to Cook Lake.
Lightning.
I'm not gonna promise that. The Lookout Tower is stainless steel, and it's 4 stories tall.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
It's a fire tower, right?
Fire tower.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I saw that.
Yeah. It's cool. It's way cool. So
Nice.
thanks, guys.
Yes, thank
Enjoy
you.
your lunch.
Thank you.
You bet.
Get this back, and
You're
I'm sorry.
It's been
I'm sorry
fun.
to take